Who wants to learn about creative finance? Anybody? Yes? Awesome. All right. So like I said, there is a lot in creative finance. There's so many different ways and creative things you can do with creative finance. So I'm going to try to hit on some of it today, and it's going to be a little high level. But if there is something you want to dive in, just ask, and if we got time, we'll do it. All right. And one thing I like to just point out is in real estate, you got to know what road you're on, right? And we kind of started with that at the beginning. Like, why are you here? All of these look amazing, don't they? Like, you could be a cool flipper, wholesaler, an agent, owning rental property. They're all part of real estate. And there's 20 other things, roads you could be on. But each one, you've got this, we got the foundational knowledge, right? That's the main road. But then you got to get to that specialized knowledge when you branch out and really dive in and go your direction. All right, so that's what we're going to talk about today, is kind of getting more specialized and using creative finance. I have to give this disclaimer because it is real, and I want everyone to settle into reality that this is not get rich quick. It's not a shortcut. It still takes a lot of work, consistency, and putting a lot of hours in sometimes, and definitely a lot of energy in to being a real estate investor. Okay. So most people, unfortunately, never even make it into this room. Like, they never make it into any rooms like this, any groups, any Facebook groups, meetup, anything. They don't even listen to podcasts about real estate investing. They just assume that it's for other people. They can't attain it. They can't reach it. You all are at least here. And again, you should give yourselves a round of applause for being here, right? Because how many of y'all have friends that think real estate investing is not possible or silly? Yeah, I'm sure most of you do. And it takes a lot to kind of step out and come to a room like this and people you don't know, especially you come by yourself, right? So you guys are way ahead of most. But even in this room, there's going to be people that just can't get it going. And that's unfortunate, because I do believe it's available. Real estate investing, the benefits from it are available to everybody if you stick with it. So we'll talk about getting creative with it, because sometimes deals require creativity. So let me just start with this one. This is one of the first ones we did, and it came out of necessity. This lady was super old, 80 something at the time, I think. And she had gone into foreclosure. They redid her mortgage, gave her a brand new 30-year mortgage, and she's like 80 something. But then she was 6 months behind. She never made one payment. And she came to us. This is a couple of years ago. This is obviously pre-COVID, with an $80,000 mortgage. And she came to us and said, I'm done. I tried. And, at that point, this is just stress. This is just eating her away. It's just like, she doesn't want to be there. They said, hey, we'll fix this loan for you. But they didn't help her, because they didn't give her any more money to pay the mortgage. They just wrapped all of the fees and made her mortgage go up. And so 6 months later, she's like, I'm done. The bank's going to take it, whatever. And she's moving in with her daughter. Okay. And so she came to us, and it's like, how do I work with someone that has an $81,000 balance and equity? Like, the property is worth $80,000. So she was underwater. You all understand what that is? Okay. So she was underwater. And it's like, what do you even do with that? Well, we get what? What do we get? Creative. Yes, we got creative. And what we did is we took over the mortgage. That would be subject to, known as subject to, which is subject to the current mortgage. And so we took that over. It's a 3.625%. And that's the monthly payment. So let me just show you. Monthly payment of her mortgage right there, $629. We ended up getting even more creative, where we sold the property on an installment sale. So someone is paying us for it, because the mortgage we took over was 29 and a half years. We actually put this person on a 30-year, which they're going to pay off early. They didn't want it for 30 years, so paying it off early. But if they just pay the normal, their amortized payments, it'd be at 8.5%, and it's $800.40 per month. Okay. So I know there's a lot of numbers. I'm not really trying to dive into that just yet, but it just goes to prove the point that getting creative can get deals done that no one else could touch. They put a down payment. Yes. Yes. $6,000 down payment. I get, yeah. Yes. So the installment is coming to us, and then we pay the mortgage for the original. We are. Yes. 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 So we go with a subject to, we go on the deed, and then an installment sales contract, they go on the deed once they pay us off. Yep. So it keeps us in control, which is the most important part whenever you do deals like this. I'll talk about the risk and stuff later. Some people, well, I don't want to get into it, but you can get yourself in trouble by putting someone else in control and stepping away. Like, I wouldn't do that. So creative finance deals, what it does is it unlocks these opportunities with less capital than normally takes. How much does it take normally to go buy, if you go to Bank of America and you want to buy an investment property, how much you got to put down? 30%? 30%? 20%? If you house hack it, maybe you can get a little bit less. If you lie on your mortgage forms, you can do mortgage fraud, right? So don't do that. But some people will say, yeah, just say you're going to live there. Don't do that. It's a bad idea. But yeah, it takes a lot to buy investment capital. But if you can get creative, you can get in with a lot less, and sometimes, like this example, with none. Okay. All right. So a little bit of just an introduction to what it is, why it's important, and then, what are the legal considerations, and we'll kind of wrap it all up with that at the end. But creative financing is, and I'm going to go through each one of these, but it is ultimately using real estate, like we're solving problems for sellers using the real estate asset. Right? That's ultimately what we're trying to do. And creative finance is basically everything else except buying it with cash or my own mortgage. Okay. So normal financing is I go to a bank and I get a loan and I pay that seller, and that seller's gone. They got their money. They're gone. It's just me and the bank now, or me and my cash. Does that make sense? You know that way. Most people know that way. Everything else is creative. Okay. Now, some things are, some people have more YouTube views, like sub 2, than others. Installment contracts kind of started getting a little bit popular for a little while. Lease options are popular, but there's so many other ways to do this. Okay. Why is it important? Why is knowing these options important for investors like you guys? Every situation is different. Yep. What else?
It opens every kind of door.
Yeah. Opens more doors. Punt, get it? Doors. Like, yes. You can help more people, right? Like the 80-year-old lady, she was just going to give it to the bank, right? At least I think we actually gave her $1,000 to move or something like that. We actually gave her something. Yeah, I think it was the moving truck, or we sent our guys with a trailer is what we've done a lot. But you can actually help more people when you can close these deals, okay? Because they probably don't know how else to do this, all right? Due diligence and legal considerations. Do not skip the attorney. Don't ever skip the attorney. I don't care if someone's like, yeah, I'll quit claim deed it to you. No, you won't. Not without the attorney, okay? No matter how easy, simple, beautiful it looks and sounds, don't skip the attorney, okay? I had one today from a deal partner where a wholesaler was like, hey, just send me the earnest money. Just write the check, send it to me, and we'll be under contract. No, it goes to who? The attorney, okay? If you don't know why, we'll tell you later. But don't skip the attorney, and be 100% upfront honest of what you are doing, okay? There's no deal. There's no even $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 paychecks. They're not worth, and I got some law enforcement in here, they're not worth going to jail for, right? So be upfront and honest and tell your attorney what you're trying to do and let them help you do it the right way, okay? If you feel like you're about to say something to the seller or to the attorney and you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say that, then that's the thing you should say. You got to blurt it out, get it out, let them know, hey, this is what we're thinking, because if you feel like you got to hide it, then you're doing something wrong, okay? And you're going to end up way worse off, yourself and probably the seller, okay? So no questions asked on that. All right. So we're going to get into the benefits and all that. Let's just talk through. These are like the main ones that you'll hear. And these are the ones that I'm going to give examples on, and we'll talk through them. And if you want to work it out, workshop it, whatever, we'll do these. Okay. One that I don't have a slide on, but I wanted to bring up. Has anybody heard of crowdfunding? Yes. I bet they did. Yeah.
100 people that invest $1 million a piece.
Yeah.
And then they're going to buy an asset that actually paid out in crypto instead of paid out in dollars.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's pretty creative. Yeah. So yes, crowdfunding, syndication. I didn't put syndication because syndication is usually for like bigger deals. But you can syndicate deals. Crowdfunding is usually smaller bits, right? And crypto has actually kind of made it even easier, where people can go in and buy and use crypto to buy real estate, and you can buy pieces and parts. Who remembers, what do they call those things? Like I call them stupid. Maybe I'm hurting somebody's feelings. Stupid pictures that you paid a lot of money for. EFTs. Y'all remember that? NFTs, not EFTs. Anyway. The NFTs. So they're making NFTs for real estate, and you could do that. So there's a lot. Again, the creativity just keeps going. So let's talk about the main ones. Owner financing. Who's heard of owner financing? Yes. Good. A few of you. If you haven't heard and you got questions, let me know. How does that work? Well, it works by the owner is now your bank. Okay. I think I missed a slide in here, but the owner becomes your bank. That last slide was subject to, because who was our bank? The first person's bank. It was subject to their bank, their mortgage. Owner financing is that owner now has a mortgage and we pay them. Okay? There would be no bank involved. The slide I was going to put in here is our apartment complex, the 16 units, where the owner financed all 16 units to us. How is an owner able to finance, and why would he want to finance us to buy 16 units with no money down? We didn't put any money down. How could he do that? 40 years ago. How much do you think he owed on those? Not a drop. How much do you think he invested back in those? Not a drop. Right, Bishop? Where's Blake? Right? Oh, man. What a mess.
How's owner financing different from rent to own with the terms? How does that work in terms of like ownership, legalities?
Don't let me forget that. So owner financing it's really great for people that have owned property for a long time, because over time, what do? They pay off their mortgage, and now they don't have a mortgage, and you can pay them. One of the great things in negotiation points is if you, I have a friend that does this. He almost solely does it with listed properties. We got some agents in here on the MLS. They will search the MLS, take it and go against his data, which I'll show y'all a picture a little later. Compare it to his data provider, like Deal Finder data, which is the image I have later, and see the MLS listings versus the people who have no mortgage. So they own it 100%. what can you do with that property if they have no mortgage? That's right. You can actually go to that seller and say they're asking $300,000. What if you went to them and offered $310 and pay them over time? Do y'all know how much you pay? If your mortgage is, if you buy a house for $300, how much you end up paying your bank after 30 years? That's close to triple. Yeah. It'll be about somewhere around 800,000 at today's 6 and 7%. So if you went to that seller and they're finance minded, they don't need the cash. They've already moved, maybe they live at the lake or whatever. Or he owns debt.com, right? He doesn't need cash. And you go to them and say, hey, I'll pay you $310 and I'll pay you actually over the next few years, it'll be about $800,000. Would you consider that? And if they're savvy enough, they know that their debt, that $300 that they're essentially lending you, is more safe, more secure in that real estate than anywhere else they could put it. And they are guaranteed whatever rate. So if you tell them I'll pay you 6% interest, now they're guaranteed a 6% return on their money. And I don't want to get into the finance of it all, but the 30-year mortgage is the best deal for the banks. Hands down, the amortization schedule is like, it can't get any better for that lender. And so if they understand that, they will get it. Yeah.
So why would a buyer want to pay more in that case? Is it because they're trying to bypass the underwriting process?
Because yeah. So what if he can go to him and say, "I'll give you $310, but I only want to put $100 down, $100 down. I'll give you $100 today," instead of going and putting 20% down, or 10,000 down versus 20%. So a buyer has a lot that you can work with those terms. Or they might be self-employed, maybe they paid cash, some kind of cash business. They don't have a good W-2 to show, those types of things. As an investor, the way my mind works is I can get into a deal with no money out of pocket, little money out of pocket, and potentially work the terms out in my favor. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Yeah, you can turn around and sell it. Yeah. If there's equity there. And so the difference, because I don't think I have a rent to own slide here, David. Rent to own is actually, if you call it rent to own, there's a law against it. So what it has to be is a lease. So you're renting the person and you can give them an option to buy, or you have to give them an installment contract. So it's two different things.
Yeah, they're not getting any equity as they pay for it, right?
Unless you do that installment contract. And that's where they would be buying it down. Does that make sense? So it's two different things put together. The way that people used to do it, and some of the shady landlords that have gone to jail years ago, they would call it rent to own, but basically it was like $600 was rent and $10 was the equity owned. And they would force the tenant to, if the water heater goes out or the HVAC or the roof, hey, you're rent to own. This is all you. But they weren't actually buying it they weren't actually paying enough towards it. So that's where people got in trouble. And so that way of doing it is not allowed. So you have to have a lease and then a purchase contract or an option. On that note, who's heard of lease options? Okay, a few of you. Our friend John Jackson was here maybe a year ago now, talking about, was that 3 years ago? Oh, well, anyway, he's a funny guy. But anyway, he was talking about lease options. And so that's what I was getting at, is a lease option gives you control of the property, because you can lease it from the seller, paying them rent. Why would you want to do that? Like, what would be a benefit for that seller if you're paying them rent? For the seller, what's the benefit for the seller? Well, they're getting paid. Yeah. I mean, they're just getting a monthly check, right? The option is a benefit because you have control. You get to decide whether or not you want to buy this at this price or not. Where it really comes into play, the way people make this a business is they will get control, negotiate a really good price on something, get an option to buy it at $100,000, pay rent for a little while with that lease, while they find a better buyer who's willing to pay 120, 130, 140, whatever it is, right? And then that better buyer then buys out that option and they make the difference. You see how that works both ways? Okay. So the definition, and again, this is really, remember when I said don't skip the attorney? Holy moly, don't skip the attorney on lease options, because your lease is one thing and your option is another. If you do the lease and installment contract, your lease is one thing and installment contract is another. If I'm a buyer and I'm in a lease purchase contract where I am leasing it, but also I'm paying them to buy it, and I stop paying them to buy it, but I keep paying my lease, can they kick me out? No, because I'm a tenant. Now, can they foreclose and cancel out that purchase contract? Yes. But can they kick out their tenant? No. Two different things. So this is why the attorneys are very, very important. And you want to make sure that you do this the right way. People get in trouble by saying, hey, you quit making payments. Excuse me. You quit making payments, so get out. Sorry. And if you don't evict, if you don't evict them, Bishop, what happens if you don't evict people and you just throw them out? What kind of trouble? You can get a lot of trouble. Like, yeah, they can actually put you in jail. They can say you stole their property. They can charge you. They can actually fine you if you mess with their stuff 3 times the value of their stuff. You have to pay it. So this is why the attorneys are very, very important. All right. Subject 2. We kind of talked about this. Now, I'll go back and give the explanation of what subject 2 is. We're talking to a seller. The seller has a mortgage. The seller has said, I don't mind if you could pay my mortgage, if you take over my mortgage. You may have to pay them some money up front. You may have to fix some stuff, maybe get them out of foreclosure. But ultimately, that seller has said, I'm fine with you paying my mortgage. Now, does that seller have the right to do that? Yes. They can say that, and they can let you pay it. But here's the issue. Would you pay someone's mortgage without putting your name on a deed? No. Don't skip the lawyer. So here's what happens. If you don't do this right, if you put your name on their deed and take their name off, now you've triggered what is in most mortgages in the last 30 years. The mortgage says, if you sell this or you transfer this deed, me as the banker has a right to come and make you pay all of it now. It's called a due on sale clause. It's in your paperwork. I promise. It's 100 pages long, but it's in there. Does Rehab Wallet have one? Yeah. So they have one. So that bank can, and here's the deal. Subject 2 has been going crazy. Of course, like I said, PACE, if you guys know PACE, is all about it. And it's been great for many years, but AI is so good that they're catching and they're seeing these deeds transfer and they're comparing them to what's happening with the bank, with the mortgages, and they're actually calling these things due. Just to kind of get into the finance of it, The reason we like sub 2 is we could take over somebody's 3% mortgage. Do you think the bank wants someone to jump on a 3% mortgage? No. They want that one paid off so they can go get a 7% mortgage. So they have an incentive to find you and make you pay these mortgages. Do y'all understand that? So, yes, that's the reason.
Is it possible like a secondary contract in place where they agree to final payment, or they just have to transfer?
That's an installment sales contract, which you can do. Yeah. And so don't skip the attorney, and you can draw this up. You can, there's different ways. One way is you move it into a trust, like a land trust or a equity trust. You put it into a trust, and then that trust transfers to you. The other way is like an installment contract where technically their name stays on the deed and you can put your name with them. However, here's the issue. If they're the owner and they're an owner on deed, then they have a lot of rights. A lot of rights. They also present a lot of liability to you if you're connected. If that person goes and does something real silly and gets sued, that's coming with that property's coming with. Okay. So that's why we don't want them to stay on title if we can help it. Yeah.
I have romanticized subject to local since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Tradition members, right? If you order this college convention.
Yeah.
The last picture there says risky reward.
Yeah.
There is still a possibility of reward. If I heard you what they do, are you advising of that lease now?
Well, I don't know if I said this. I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a CPA. So this is all from my experience, right? That's right. So the risks they are high. The other issue is if you're messing with their credit. So that mortgage stays on their credit, right? So you are now, if you're having trouble with your credit, don't go mess up someone else's credit because they're going to come after you. They're going to be pissed. So you got that risk, right? Then you have the due on sale clause. Now, the crazy part is down in Atlanta, they had a bunch of lawsuits because of those exact things. It was still on people's credit and they missed the payment. And then now Atlanta and Georgia, they're talking about making it illegal. So you have those risks. The reward is all the benefits of we get to get into a deal that other people can't get in. If they're underwater at a 3%, yeah, that's a benefit to us. Are we willing to risk, the due on sale clause? Yeah, because it was like 80 grand and we could probably refinance out of it, at least most of it if we had to, right? So you don't want to go underwater by $40,000, $50,000 that you'll never be able to refinance out of. You got to have a way out if it gets called. You also want to make sure you have a pretty good relationship with that seller. This is not a fly-by-night, like, ooh, I'm going to snatch it and I'll never have to talk to them again. You really want to build some rapport because if something happens, you got to talk to them. If the bank does say it's due on sale or something happens on the property, the taxes or it burns down, right? Insurance is still going to have their name on there. You may have your own insurance, but there's a lot of communication. And that's a little bit of the issues that I have with what's happened with Sub 2 across the country is people just kind of got in there, did the paperwork, and didn't really communicate the whole picture to the seller. Yes.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah. So that's why So the question is, if you do a subject to, but their name is still on the title or on the deed, and they get a lien, it's there. That lien is now against the property. So that's why you don't want to have their name on that title or that deed anymore. Well, the only way to remove a lien is either you wait the 10 years and hope they don't pay, don't renew the lien. If it's a tax, like federal tax, I don't think it goes away. You get them to pay it, which if they got to a lien, they're probably not going to just pay it. They're going to say, well, it'll get paid off later, which means you would have to pay it off just when you sell. Not once the lien's there, it's there. Yeah. It's that's talk to the lawyer. Yeah. But I think you're stuck with it. Yeah. And you can negotiate liens, but that's a whole other thing. But all right, installment sales contract. We kind of hit on this a little bit. The concept of installment sales contract is very similar to who in here has bought a new car? Yes, 1 or 2 people. Good. Okay, a few people bought a new car. Did y'all make payments? Did you get a loan? Okay. When did they send you the title? When it's paid off. Very similar. Yeah. Really? That place is crazy. They stamp it as a lien? Yeah. Yeah. So they stamp it with the lien, which, right. That makes sense. So here in South Carolina, but anyway, but the idea is you don't have the clear title yet. So same concept with installment sales contract. If on that car, can you put new tires on it? Like once you drive it off, even though you don't have the title, and you can repaint it, you can put new kitchen cabinets in it if you wanted to somewhere. Same thing with a house. You're just making payments, and you don't actually transfer that deed and title until the final payment. Okay? If you are doing that, if you're buying on an installment sales contract, don't skip the attorney. Make sure that contract is filed and you want to put your name up on that deed. Okay? This really benefits the seller more than the buyer. Okay? The only thing that when you flip that, and it's more of a benefit to the buyer if it's a short-term deal. Like if you want to flip the house or you're going to refinance it real quick, you can get in with very little money, right? You can get in with $500. Just make payments to them and then flip it. Just sell it, rehab it and sell it. That's where it's a benefit to the buyer because we can get in so cheap and get a good deal on the front end. But if it's a long-term, again, we don't want our name. We don't want someone else's name on our deed. So that's why installment sales contract as a buyer is not great for long-term. Does that make sense? I know it's kind of legal-ish stuff like back and forth. Deposit versus escrow. I want to make sure we say this. A deposit, so an installment sales contract, if David and I did an installment sales contract right now for his house on Stevenson, I could give him $100 deposit right now, and now I am under contract with him, installment sales contract, and that's my first payment. So your first payment on a installment sales contract is a deposit, and now I can actually list that property and try to sell it to someone else because now I'm buying it. I'm a part owner. I have all legal rights to do whatever. If I put money in escrow, can you sell a house after you put it in escrow? No, please don't try to do that. So money in escrow is not ownership. Deposit and a payment is ownership.
So kind of do like a workaround also.
Yes. So it's a workaround for wholesaling. It's not really a workaround for wholesaling. It's just using smart methods to get ownership cheaper. So we can make a payment for, if I wanted to buy a house for $100,000, I'm like, I'll give you $100,000 within this next year, but I want to make $100 payments for the 12 months until I get all that cash. Seller says, sure, why not? That sounds fine. As soon as you make that first payment, you're now an owner and you can now sell it or paint it or put kitchen cabinets in it, whatever you want to do. And so if you wanted to quote wholesale, you can list it on the MLS and sell it. And now you've only put $100, $200, $500, whatever it is, and you can sell it with no issues.
Thanks for listening to the REI Deal Finders podcast. You can find out more and apply to be a part of the REI Deal Finder community at reidealfinders.club.